Hey everybody, we're going to do a little late night tutorial over here today. Um, Sorry, I stayed home today. Well, I took a vacation day. I didn't like just stay home. I pre-planned this. I took a vacation day today and I've been like cleaning and organizing around the house. So I'm a little messy. So just ignore. And I thought now that I'm feeling a little more organized in here that I would do the Blush 101 video that we have been waiting for. So that's what we're gonna do tonight. Do super chill. It's late night. I never actually put on makeup today, so we're gonna start with a bare face because I kind of want to show you guys some things. And I think it's gonna be easier to do it with a bare face and wipe it off, and then we can do the actual tutorial part. If you guys do notice this weird spot on my neck, I have one of those acne patches on because I have some sort of weird zit coming up down here on my neck. So that's why it looks funny, because I have one of those clear patches on top. If you guys don't know what I'm talking about, check out the Amazon video that I did about things I love from Amazon. Okay, so like I said, I really just kind of put some concealer on my eyelids, but I have no like foundation makeup on because I just want to do a little chit-chatting, kind of want to feel on our face, mark some things on our face before we get into the actual tutorial. So this is Blush 101. This is part of the what I call micro tutorials, and I will link this in Unit 2 when I am finished with it. So it'll be there for you guys for later. Okay, so first let's talk about types of blush. I think the most common type of blush that you all have seen before is powder blush. And they come in a variety of compacts. This one has been formed in like the shape of a flower. This is just a typical like flat pan blush. And, you know, here's a blush palette. So that's powder blush. I think that's the most commonly used, the most universal. I think that's what we all grew up with. And if you have an oily skin type, this is probably the formulation that you want to stick with. Typically with oil, the more powders, the better, because that helps absorb that oil throughout the day. The next most common, I would say, is the cream formulas. And those you can get in a couple different, I'm going to use the word density, even though I don't think that's really the most appropriate word for that. You'll have them sometimes where they will be a cream and they'll still be in a pan like this. This is a powder, but sometimes you'll see them in a cream in a pan like this that you can put your finger in. I don't currently have any of those. I do like the ones that come in like a stick formulation. I think these are really easy to use if you want a cream. And then one more popular, I think the most popular you see in the cream is either the stick or like the squeezy tube. And these are really easy to use too. Now, what I think these formulations are for, these are probably not, cream is probably not your best choice if you're oily skinned. That's not where I would go with it. If you have a more dry skin type, you'll probably really like creams. If you have a normal skin type, you'll probably like creams. And the other thing that I think creams are really good for is if you're not into foundation, if you don't use a base product at all, like you were just blessed with beautiful skin and you have no use whatsoever for base product, I really think creams are going to look the most natural on you in that case. So that's where I think they can be really beneficial. One that I do not have because I've just never really had any use for it. I've tried it over the years and I'm not the biggest fan. There are liquid cheek products. They're typically going to be called like a cheek tint or a cheek stain, and they're typically like a dual use product. A lot of times they'll say lip and cheek stain or lip and cheek tint. I know years ago Benefit had one called Benetint, I believe. I'm not sure if that's still made. I haven't seen it in a long time if it is. I know Urban Decay just released one in their new Game of Thrones collection, and that one's getting pretty good reviews, but it's like one shade, that's it. So those just aren't as popular. I think they're a little bit harder to work with, so that's why I'm not the biggest fan of them. But I do want to let you guys know that they are out there. If these two formulations don't work with you and the idea of a liquid blush sounds fabulous to you, it is available and you may want to go check that out. Okay, so those are the three formulations that you can get blush in. The next thing I want to talk about is you're going to want to pick a blush that is a good undertone. Blush comes in a range of colors. Like, you know, this is just a quick little look. These are the Balm Cosmetics. I forget what these are called. They're supposed to be a long wear cheek product. So you can see, you know, blush comes in a range. This is not the full range, but this is a pretty good showing of the different colors. If you are a cool undertone, and we kind of talked about if you don't know what undertone you are, I broke that down where did I break that down? It was a foundation video. If you guys remember what video that is, somebody comment below for me. If you really need to know and you don't know that video, let me know and I'll dig it up and I'll find where we kind of really got into that. I'm pretty sure it was like a how to pick your foundation video. I think that's what it's called. Okay, so anyway, so if you're a more cool undertone, you're probably going to want to stay with the cooler undertone shades. Is kind of how I feel. I mean, I don't feel like this is a hard and fast rule. This is a pretty general by the thumb rule. You definitely, if you have warm undertones, can wear blushes with cool undertones, but I tend to do that when it's more, I'm going for a specific look, maybe doing something with an outfit or an all over makeup look. But my day-to-day, I'm going to stick with a blush that has the same undertone family that my skin does, because I just think that looks the most natural. The whole idea behind blush is that it's supposed to look like your face is flushed. And if you use something that's a completely different undertone than your skin, it's not really going to look natural. But you can use them. It's not that it's going to look bad on your skin. So these would be your more, you know, especially this one would be a more cool tone shade. This one's kind of in between there, but this is definitely cool toned. There's like a little gnat or something in here. I think mauves are pretty universal. These two, I really think cool or warm undertone would work. This mauve, I think, you know, would work either way. For some reason, I think those mauve blushes really can go through either undertone. If you are a warmer undertone like I am, you have more yellow in your skin, I think the most natural look on a blush is going to be staying in a warm undertone. This is obviously, if you have a fair complexion, this is going to look almost too vibrant for you. This is more a medium tan dark skin tone blush. This would be more for like my complexion and fairer, and then even maybe going to lighter there. So the brightness of it, blushes typically get brighter for deeper skin tones because they stand out better. So I hope that made sense. And I pulled a couple palettes over here just to kind of show you some different colors because I don't have a ton of cool undertones. So this I thought was another example of a cool toned blush. I have a drawer full of warm toned blushes because that's what I use. But that would be a cooler tone blush. And then trusty old MAC. This one is neutral to cool, I would say. So this definitely could be used on cooler skin tones. These are pretty neutral. Then this definitely gets into your warmer skin tones here. And this purple one, this is just very unique, and that's a costume blush. I don't know that I would recommend that you wear that every day, unless what that blush tone can look really good on is if you are in the deep skin range, but on the lower end, like the lighter end of the deep skin. If you're on the lighter end of the deep skin tone range, if that makes any sense at all, like that shade purple blushes can look really good, really pretty. I really like that look. Anywho, okay, so I think that's formulations and undertones help you to pick out a blush at a store that you want to use. So now I want to kind of talk about how you would actually apply blush. And that's why I wanted to leave my face bare to start out with. Really just feel your face. Everything, you guys, with like color cosmetics on your face is really about your bone structure. Your bone structure really is going to determine where you put your makeup. And there are different places you can put blush to achieve different looks. I'm going to today just demonstrate probably the most universal, I guess I would say, way that I think pretty much fits most face types. So find your cheekbone. It'll be right in here somewhere. The bottom of your cheekbone normally sits, if you drew a line from the top of your ear to the edge of your mouth, to the corner of your mouth, your cheekbone should be right above that. That should be the bottom of your cheekbone right there. And then your cheekbone goes up. So the top of my cheekbone sticks right here. So we've covered that before because this is where you would stick your contour, is underneath your cheekbone. Above your cheekbone is where you're going to put your highlight, and your blush is pretty much going to stay right on top of that cheekbone. That's where we want our blush to go. And your cheekbone's probably going to end. You're probably going to feel it die off right about here. And that's about where you want your blush to stop too. If you are concerned about your face looking too wide, you may not want to pull your blush all the way back into your hairline. I do, that's not a concern for me, but if you do feel like wideness in your face is a concern of yours, you may want to stop your blush a little bit shorter, and that will help with that overall look. So yeah, pretty much right here on top of your cheekbone is where you want to put your blush. I've heard a couple kind of rules of thumbs of where to stop it in the front of your face. I've heard if you take the center of your eye and draw, if you look straight forward and go down the very center of your pupil, that line would be where you'd want to stop. I need something skinnier than my finger. So I've heard, like right there is where they would say for me to stop my blush. I think the easier rule that I've heard is 2 fingers from your nose. But where this could be tricky is if you have a really wide set nose, I think that could throw you off a little bit. So there's just kind of 2 rules of thumb to stick by, either center of your eye straight down or 2 fingers. You can see on my face, that's pretty much the exact same spot. So you do not want your blush going any further in than that, or your face will start to look, what do I want to say? I think drawn down. I think if you put your blush any further in, your face is going to everything's going to pull down and in, and that's not typically what we're going for. Then this is why I really wanted to leave my makeup off to do this. The best demonstration I've ever seen of why a lot of people think the whole rule they heard when they were younger or back in the day was to smile and to put your blush directly on the apple of your cheek. And the best demonstration I've ever saw to kind of demystify, I don't know what the term, to get rid of that myth, is I saw somebody once do that and then drop, and it shows where, so I'm going to do that really quick. So I'm going to use this cream and I'm just going to draw it directly on. So if I smiled and did the apple of my cheeks, and then I'm going to mark it, and we're going to show where that drops. So it looks nice and high right here, right? So there's the apple of my cheek. And then when you let go, look how low that is on my face. Like, it's just, it pulled everything down. So I just really don't think that whole, I don't know, I'm not a big fan of that technique because of that, because I just feel like it pulls your face down. I'm not putting my blush that far down on my face. I feel like it just drags everything down. So demystify, is that the term I was looking for? That's probably the term I was looking for. So yeah, so that's why I'm not a big fan of the whole smile, put it on the apple of your cheek, and then because it's just your face drops. See, you do, but it doesn't work as well with the brush. That's why I liked the cream. But anyways, yeah, I'm just not, it's not wrong. Again, there's nothing wrong with it. I just don't think it's going to give you the most desirable look. So, okay, so now we're going to talk about application. And so this is why we don't have makeup on, because depending on which product you're using, my notes turned off. I had my notes on my phone. Okay. Depending on which formulation you're using is going to determine where in your routine you're going to use it. The next thing that I wanted to talk about is the brush size. I am a little bit unusual, I think, in the brush size that I use for blush. I feel like most people use something more this sized, and the brush I use is this size. So I am aware that I use a smaller than normal blush brush, and this is called the Pro Small Blush number 74 from Sephora, and I've had it for years, and the handle is cracked all to goodness. But just, I am aware that I use a smaller blush brush. I like it because I then have control of exactly where it goes, and then I blend it out. I do think using a larger brush is maybe a little easier because you just kind of swipe it on, and it kind of diffuses it for you faster. But I'm just too much of a control freak, and most of the time I want more control than that. So just be aware that the brush that I use is a little smaller than average. And I'm very intentional with that. So depending on the formulation that you are going to use is going to determine where in your application you put it on. So I'm going to slap on some foundation right now. So I'm just getting foundation on for the sake of getting it on, because I'm going to wash it off as soon as we do this video. And I'm going to blend this in. So if you are going to wear base or foundation, however you refer to it, you're going to put that on before your blush, most likely. Yeah, I can't think of any reason you would put your blush on before, unless you're like doing the reverse challenge. That's about the only reason I can think of. So you're going to want to put your base on, and then I like to put on, if you're going to do any sort of under eye concealing, I think it's best to put that on before your blush as well. So I'm just going to put a little on here. And the reason you wouldn't have to do this first, but this way I don't have to be careful when I'm blending my concealer out. If you're very careful with blending out your concealer, you could definitely do this after your blush, but I just think it's a little bit easier this way because I like to pull it down here on my cheek a little bit to blend it in. And we'd be covering up blush if we'd already put our blush on. So there we go. A little more on this extra dark circle. Okay, so if you are going to use a cream blush, you need to put it on before you powder your face. Just blending out here. So there's a couple different ways you do it. You could put it on a palette and pick it up with a synthetic brush and put it on that way. You can put it on, so you could do it with synthetic brush and put it on your cheeks and blend it out. You can use the end of a beauty blender and blend it out, or you can put it on your cheek and blend it out with your fingers. So I'm probably gonna do a little combination here. If you are going to powder your face, you are going to want to put on, if you're going to powder your face after this, if you're a powder setter, which I am, you're going to want to put your cream blush on a little more vibrant than you actually want it, because when you set it with the powder, you're going to lose some of that vibrancy. So we're going to leave this a little bolder than what I was using is the Blush Sense by Senegence. The cream one I used earlier, this one is really nice too, is the Wet n Wild Mega Glow blush in the color Hustle and Glow. So we're going to put this on just a little bit bolder than we intend it to look in the end, because I am a setter. I set my, I'm going to use the brush too, just to show you, you can use this as well. I'm a setter. I set my face with powder with all my cream products. So I want this on here a little brighter than I necessarily need it. So we're going to do a half and half. So this is the cream formula application. If you are not planning on setting your face with powder, then blend this out to the appropriate brightness for you. You can see I have stayed on my cheekbone. So here's the bottom of my cheekbone, and that's where the blush stops. And this is the top of my cheekbone, and that's where my blush stops. And I am about 2 fingers away, or the center of my eye is where this stops on the front of my face, and I have dragged it all the way back into my hairline. And that's my placement for brush. I shouldn't have done that. I just tapped too much and I lost some of my blush. I blended too much. We'll go back. That brush was picking up quite a bit, so there we go. Okay, so this is cream application. I think I already said it, but I'm gonna say it again in case I didn't. If you aren't going to set, if you're done, like this is where your makeup be done, you know, keep it the vibrancy you want. But we're going in with powder, so we got a little brighter. So next we need a face powder. This is going to be our powder application side. We're getting to that. Okay, so I'm just going to take my all-time world most favorite face powder in the whole wide world, and that's the NYX No Filter powder. It's technically a finishing powder. I do not know why you can't find, I can't seem to find this in stores anymore. And this is my favorite powder. It hasn't been discontinued. You can still order it. But I'm afraid if they're not stocking it in stores, they're going to get rid of it. I'm going to be upset because it's the best. And I'm not going to do the whole baking, setting, under eye thing. But if we were doing a full face of makeup right now, you would want to go in there and set underneath the eye. Okay. And then when you get to the cream blush, you are just going to set this face powder right over it. But because we went in, this is not a powder foundation. This would not work if you're, you know, setting with a powder foundation. But if you're setting with any sort of translucent or setting powder or finishing powder for your face, it's going to dull down just a bit, but your blush is still there. Hope you guys can see that. So now, because we've put that skin toned face powder on top of it, it has just toned itself down a little bit. And it's now the perfect shade because we put it on a little brighter than we actually wanted it to start with. So that is cream side. Now, not to get too confusing, some people do, I just want to say this, some people do like to layer cream and powder blush. If you just have a really hard time with blush staying put and you've tried all the 12-hour waterproof blush formulas out there and they're still not doing it for you, or you just have some sort of very, I don't know, difficult job that makeup just doesn't want to stay put, you may want to do this, and you may now at this time want to put a blush on top of that, and layering it will help with the longevity. But we're just going to leave that as is for now. So now we're going to go to the other side of the face, and I'm going to demonstrate it with powder product. Most of you have probably done this. We're just going to stick the brush in here, and we're just going to work in circular motions and put this blush on that cheekbone. So we're using the exact same placement as we did with the cream, and just blending this on the cheekbone. And the blush that I'm using is the Milani Blossom Time Rose Powder Blush number 11. I was trying to find blushes in my stash that were somewhat similar in color. So I think I have mentioned to you guys before, my cheekbones actually dent in here and here on my face. And I always thought that was very unusual and unique, and I thought it was only something I dealt with. But I've done makeup on a couple other people in my career that had the exact same issue. So I know I'm not the only person in the world. If for some reason when you put on your blush like this, like, you know, we all do, and you're seeing somewhere a spot where your blush just doesn't seem to stick as much, I had been asked if I had like possibly scar tissue there, and I don't. And then I had the medical professionals that put my filler in my face, they told me my bone actually kind of dips in right there. And so I guess that's why the blush doesn't set there in that spot. I don't know if you guys can see that, but see how it just, even though I evenly did this, for some reason, like right here, it just doesn't catch as well. So what you guys will see me do a lot is I will just go back in and just tap that pigmentation right there. So that's why you see me do that sometimes. Most likely that's not something you're going to need to do. That's just kind of something unique to my face structure. But there's possibly somebody else out there that has that same issue. So that's how I handle it. So yeah, so that's blush. So again, same area. We've got bottom of the cheekbone right there, and that's where the blush stops. Top of the cheekbone, and that's where the blush stops. You know, right here is where you put highlight if you want to. And then we're about 2 fingers away from the nose and directly below the eye, and that's where it stops as well. So that is pretty much your placement for blush. There's definitely other ways to do it. This is not the only place you can put blush, but I think this is the most universally flattering place to put blush. So yeah, so just remember, if you're going to use a cream, you need to put your cream on before you put your face powder on. If you're going to use a powder, you're going to put it on after you put your face powder on. So just depending on, I'm like waving my brush around over here. So yeah, depending on which formulation, if you're going to use a liquid, I would use it the same way with the cream. Put it on before your face powder. Okay, and then I talked about layering it. So this is the cream side, and then we put the face powder on top. If for whatever reason you just have a really hard time with blush staying put, and even buying the like long wear formulas doesn't seem to work for you, what you may want to do is after you put the cream on, you can put some blush on top, and then you're just going to have more layers to work with, and that should give you a longer wear. I love both cream and powder formulas. Yeah, I love them. Like I said, cream, if you're not going to use base or foundation, I think cream is beautiful. It gives that very natural look. I did very briefly want to talk about blush toppers. Sometimes you'll see these, and I just have this one in this little pack. See how this looks? It's pink. It looks like a blush color, but it's like very shimmery. I think they sold this as a blush, but or no, they call it a duo glow. To me, something this shimmery has a very high chance of looking disastrous if you use this as a blush all over your cheekbone. But this also really isn't a highlight because it's not going to look like light hitting the top of your face. You'll hear people talk about blush toppers. And that's what I think this is, and you'll find, you know, other ones. This is not the only one in the world. But if you have a blush topper like this and you don't know what to do with it, the way I would use this is I would use this almost in the same spot you put highlight, just a very teeny tiny smidgen lower. So I would stay, and I'm just going to draw it on so I have this swatch on my finger. I would stay, like our highlight would go right here, right? And it blends into the blush. Where I would put a blush topper, I would not use blush topper and highlight. I would stick with one or the other. I would stay within the line of the blush, but just keep it right here on the top. And what that's going to do is going to give you a highlight. I need a brush to blend this up. We'll just use the blush. It's going to give you the effect of a highlight without having, most of the time highlights are going to be a more champagne, white, cream color. They're going to be more in the beige family. Blush toppers are going to be, you know, pink. They're going to be in the pink family. But a blush topper can give you the same effect as a highlight, but without putting, it's a different color family. So you can see that there. It gives you that highlight, but if you look straight on, you're not going to see it, and you're not going to get that shimmer from the top. So I think a blush topper is a good way to get the highlighting effect without using highlighter. It's probably I would say a more natural way of getting that highlighted look. Because you see it hit the top of your cheekbone, but you're not getting that additional color going on over here. But like I said, leave it, like this is the peak of my cheekbone. I would leave it between the peak of your cheekbone and the top of your cheekbone is where I would leave that blush topper. I think if you put it below the peak of your cheekbone, that center line of your cheekbone, it's going to pull everything down. It's not going to be a cute look, most likely. I think that's everything. I'm loving this blush topper. I'm gonna have to use it more often. So let me know if you guys have any questions, if I didn't cover anything or I jumbled something up and you just wanna ask me about it, let me know. And I hope you guys have a fabulous evening, and I will talk to you guys later. Bye.